what is a trust and why do you need one? I'm sure you've heard of trusts, and you may have even heard of people that have had trusts, but for some reason, when it came time to use the trust and it just didn't work. And so there are definitely reasons for that as well that you need to know right away. Attorney Joseph A. Marra is an expert in estate planning, and he is going to discuss today, what you need to know about trusts. Listen in.
What's a trust? Well, like a will, it's a legal document, okay? And trusts are like Chinese menus. You basically pick what you want in the trust and they're used for different purposes. But the two main distinctions are called testamentary trusts and inter vivos trusts or living trusts. So you could have a will and you could set up a trust within your will that only takes effect after you die and is funded after you die. That's a testamentary trust, okay? What people typically think of to avoid the probate process, which we just discussed, is a revocable living trust, okay? That's typically what people do to avoid the probate process. So you may say to me, as clients have, wait a minute. You're telling me to do a trust, right? Yeah. You're also telling me that I'll avoid probate if I leave everything joint. Yeah. Well, then I won't do a trust. I'll just leave everything joint with my 3 kids. Well, once again, that works assuming your kids don't die before you do. What happens if they do? What happens if one of your children dies before you and now you've named 3 of them on joint on your account? Do you want the other 2 to get it, or do you want the predeceased children to get it? Okay. And are you really going to be in a state of mind, especially most people wait a long time to do these things? Are you going to be in a state of mind to, oh yeah, I have my joint accounts and now one of my kids died, I got to go back in and fix that. Most people are not in that state of mind. So that's it. To my mind, if things go great according to plan, yeah, that works. But do things always go according to plan? No, they do not. So I say, set up a trust, put all the contingencies in the world in the trust. And you avoid the probate process. Is it more expensive? Well, up front it is, but on the back end, you save. I think they've done studies. This is before everything went south with COVID, and they said that you save 25% by doing it up front, but obviously now you're paying the money up front. I would say that I would argue that money amount is a lot more now because of the problems that COVID has caused, and also these financial institutions are making it a lot more difficult to extract the money from them. It used to be you send them a letter with the letter's testamentary and the death certificate, and they send you a check. Well, now it gets rerouted, it gets lost, it gets here, you got to make repeated phone calls, God knows how. It's just become a nightmare process. Way to avoid this is through trusts, okay? And as I said, there are trusts that are part of your will. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about living trusts or inter vivos trusts. So they are written documents that, like a will, say what's going to happen when you die with your assets. But here's a catch. You have to put the assets in the trust. I've had people walk into me, oh yeah, Dad did a trust. Okay, let me see the trust. Well, what assets are titled in the name of the trust? The guy looks at me like I have 9 heads. What are you talking about? Well, did Dad take his Merrill Lynch account and have it transferred to the trust? No. Did he go to Chase Bank and have his bank accounts transferred to the trust? No. Well, then take the trust and use it as wallpaper or toilet paper or whatever you want to use it as, because it has no effect because nothing was transferred to it. Okay. So for the trust to be truly effective, assets have to be transferred to it. And really everything has to be transferred to it. And I'll tell you one more horror story. I had a guy from Eastern Europe, and he had a wife, his wife died, no kids. He had a brother died, no kids. So he says, well, I explained this whole thing to him. You really should do a trust. He says, I agree. But you got to put the assets in the trust. He goes, okay. So he had real estate. I transferred the real estate into the trust. He left. He had a couple more $1 million in assets. He probably got $1.5 million of it into the trust before he died. But there's $500,000 that never got in the trust. So what happens with that? What we did to catch this, we also did what's called a pour over will, which basically says, look, if I didn't get my assets in the trust, they're now going to go through the probate process and go into the trust. So some people ask me, if I have a trust, do I need a will? Yes, you do, because people invariably screw this thing up somewhere along the line. And that's what this guy did. Well, P.S., he died right before COVID. The case has been in the court system since COVID, so it's a year and a half plus. And first cousins, once removed, have come out of the woodwork and now contesting the will and contesting the trust. So God knows when this is going to get wrapped up and these monies are going to be distributed. We don't know, because he didn't follow the complete plan. So it's not only drafting the documents, it's when you leave the attorney's office, following up, understanding what you have to do. I just had somebody today, what about this one account? Can I leave it alone? You could do whatever you want. But if the account's in your name when you died, you still got to go through probate. And if it's over $50,000 in your name, they have to go through the whole process anyway. So why would you want to do that? Once you get everything into the trust and set it up, well, it's like everything else, like you get used to it. It's, instead of saying the John Doe bank account, it says now the John Doe Trust Number 1 bank account. And as far as you're concerned, there's no difference. You're still writing checks. You have to change all your direct deposits. You have to do all of that. It's a royal pain in the neck. But if you want to make things easier for your family, when you pass on, set up a trust, okay? We talked about testamentary trust only going into effect when you die. Inter vivos trust is set up while you're alive. There are two types, revocable and irrevocable. Well, revocable, you could revoke it, you could cancel it, you could change it, you could take money in, take money out, do whatever you want. Then there's irrevocable. Well, why would you do an irrevocable trust? You say, Joe, irrevocable means once I put my money in, I can't get it out? Yep, you can't. Why would I do that? Well, there are a number of reasons. You might do it for Medicaid planning purposes. You might do it for estate tax purposes, beyond the scope of what we're talking about here, but there are many reasons to do irrevocable trusts. Once again, drafting and signing the document is not enough. You got to get assets into it. The trustee is the person who handles the trust. As we mentioned, the executor in a will, the administration proceeding. We have the trustee for the trust. If it's a revocable trust, can you be a trustee? Absolutely. You're the trustee. Most times I recommend naming a co-trustee, but some people don't feel comfortable with that for the same reason of naming a power of attorney. I recommend naming a co-trustee. They don't have to do anything, but they can. And definitely name successor trustees. With an irrevocable trust, generally you are not the trustee. You name a third party for various reasons, taxes, other reasons. So people also say, well, wait a minute, if I name a third party as trustee, what if they go bankrupt? It's not their assets. They're holding it as trustee. It doesn't go in their bankruptcy estate. Can't be attacked by their wife in a divorce. They're acting as trustee. Okay? The basic, simple living trust, it's a revocable trust. It's commonly known as the living trust, is used to avoid the probate process. That's basic enough for most people. If you have estate tax issues, if you want to do Medicaid planning to avoid, qualify for Medicaid in case you need a nursing home, then we use other things. So it says here, what? Medicaid planning, estate tax planning, probate avoidance. Those are generally the reasons for using a trust. So they could be customized to fit your individual needs. So whatever you want to do, we'll do. It's funny. People are funny. I just had a lady in yesterday who says, I want to do a basic trust. And she explained to me that some of the people she wanted to use it for were under 10 years old. Well, what do you want to do? When do you want them to get this money? Well, she gave me this whole complicated thing as what she wants to do. Well, that's obviously for me to write those provisions going to cost you more money. It's not a basic trust. She got upset. Well, you told me your price. Yeah, I told you price for a basic trust. But now we're not talking about a basic trust anymore. We're talking about complicated provisions to protect minors. and utilization of money for minors. So obviously that adds to the expense. You want something customized, then it's going to cost you more. Understand that. Okay.
Thank you so much for listening to our video. If you have any questions about the information that you've heard today, please don't hesitate to contact the law offices of Joseph A. Marra. They are experts in what they do and more than willing to help you get the right strategies in place so that your estate planning makes sense and that it works the way you need it to. Thank you so much, and we'll look forward to hearing from you